Everybody, what's going on? Fabian for Liberty. FabianForLiberty.com is my website. In this video, I'm breaking down China and Russia preparing for war. And articles have been pouring out over the last couple of weeks about this, and I think that it's a pretty big story. You know, if you watch mainstream media, I monitor mainstream media, really it seems like the big things that are now being discussed are Bill Clinton's sexual escapades in the 1990s, in 80s and 70s, and transgender bathrooms. You know, I don't know about you, but if that's kind of the stuff you want to listen to, then you can kind of press the old, kind of delete or stop button on this video, because that's not what I'm talking about. So here we go. I saw a series of articles the other day regarding China and regarding China's military literally threatening now the U.S. government over the South China Sea. Interesting note here is that if you've seen my videos in the past about the global economic reset, I've talked about how the South China Sea was one of the real flashpoints we could see that starts off and sends out, this kind of shock around the world regarding a military conflict that many think would never happen between the West and the East. But make no mistake, the Chinese are preparing for this, and they're preparing for their territorial expansion. What I also find interesting is the fact that China and Russia, and for that matter, many in the West, are economically freaked out. And this has always been historically something that gets to a war or a regional conflict, has been countries that are freaked out economically. And so China recognizes it has trillions invested in the United States that could potentially go belly up. I mean, you have Donald Trump saying he would renegotiate debt, which I actually agree with, but he would renegotiate debt with some of the U.S. credit holders if it came to. They're the number one accumulator of global debt, China is, since 2008. So they've printed an insane amount of money to go out and buy a bunch of stuff and buy stuff and make deals with other countries. Whether or not that's going to pay off, who knows? But their economy surely is not like all hunky-dory. Here's the thing, is that now this claim they're making in the South China Sea, if you look at the economic ramifications of this, like half the world's oil supply passes through there. A third of commercial shipping passes through that region. If they control that region, ladies and gentlemen, it reminds me of the British when they had the world reserve currency, had the strongest navy in the world, but more importantly, they controlled all the commercial routes for global trade around the world. Make no mistake, that is a huge component of China's expansion into the South China Sea. And I'm not going to get into whether or not their territorial claim is legit or not. But they certainly seem to think so. Now, Russia, I find it absolutely insane how the West continues to want to provoke Russia. Now, you have to understand the way Russia works, and really the way China works as well, is that the military in those countries have an extreme, not an extreme, but they have a real center of power. They're very influential in what happens. And in the case of Vladimir Putin and Russia, you have the military on one side, and then on the other side, you have the kind of more elites that want everything to be kosher and hunky-dory for business and everything to be cool. Well, recently you had the equivalent of kind of the attorney general in Russia saying, look, Russia's not prepared for war. We need to start getting prepared. And people are saying that Putin is on that bandwagon of continuing preparations for war to defend themselves, what they believe to be against NATO and Western aggression. Now, in Poland we had, and in Eastern Europe we're having now, Obama set up these anti-missile defense shields that Russia is right at Russia's doorstep. And I often say, like, if Mexico, or not Mexico, let's say the Russians started to set up ballistic missile anti-missile brigades along the border of Mexico, would the U.S. tolerate that? But somehow we're expected to think that Russia's just going to go along with that. Now, it's insane. But the insanity of it, this is important, the insanity of all this is what actually triggers breakouts in these different wars. Now, I should say that the Pentagon has also come out and said that China is currently preparing for war. The president of China recently met with the People's Liberation Army, I think it is, the PLA, and basically said, look, we got to really get it going on right now. We're under threat. We're under a regional and global threat, and we need to be prepared to act accordingly. Of course, we've all heard over the last year, there's been several joint military exercises and drills between the Russians and the China. So what we see going on, ladies and gentlemen, is my forecasting of several years back regarding the Eastern alliance that's being formed between the Iranians, the Russians, the Chinese, and many other countries, including some in the West, maybe even like Germany, that are starting to see, look, the current world order is not working out. And it all goes to economics. The next major crash that we see in the United States, I think, will fundamentally change the world. And these other countries, particularly Russia and China, see the handwriting on the wall. They're preparing for it. But it's not going to be easy. You know, the Russians, one of the other things that the Secretary of State, kind of Attorney General in Russia, he's not called that, but that's kind of like the equivalent. He said Russia needs to prepare also for financial terrorism, that they're not prepared to take on the brunt of a Western financial hit against their economy. We saw the West use this method and strategy of really warfare against them over the Ukraine scenario that broke down. And, you know, Russia kind of persevered, and they sent troops into Syria, and they, you know, continue to build, you know, high-tech military weapons and jets and what have you. But this is all, I believe, coming to a head. It's coupled with the economy. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and what you think. I'm Fabian for Liberty. Real quick, this week I'm running another special. If you're on the fence about my real estate program, I want to work with you, email me and I'll give you the details of what that looks like. I got some really, really exciting things coming out here in the next month or so regarding real estate for people that are already established real estate people. I know a lot of you watch these videos that is going to be really, I think, a great opportunity for the current real estate climate. But if you're on the fence, email me, Fabian@fabiancalvo.me, Fabian@fabiancalvo.me. Thank you so much for watching. I'm out.